Seeing that it's 10:01, we're going to go ahead and get started today. So hello and good morning. Welcome to the second webinar in a three-part series around personalized and proficiency-based learning. My name is Crystal Smith. I see some familiar names and faces out there, so thank you for joining us today. I serve as the Education Innovation Manager at the Office of Public Instruction, and we have partnered with KnowledgeWorks to bring some knowledge to the field from the field to Montana about personalized proficiency-based models and what they look like. And with that, I will turn it over to Abby to get us started today.
Hello, everyone. I'm Abby Everett. I work for KnowledgeWorks, and KnowledgeWorks is a national foundation that's based in Cincinnati, Ohio. And we've worked around creating the future of learning for about 20 years. And to do this, we partner with learning communities across the country to create purposeful paths and places to ensure that each student graduates ready for what's next. And today we have a panel for you from a couple districts that I'll introduce here in a second. But our goal today is to talk about jumping off points and getting ready and pushing forward to get started with personalized and proficiency-based learning. To do this, we're going to talk about initial steps and strategies district leaders can take, and then learn from experiences and lessons learned from our district leaders who are here serving on our panel. One thing to note when we get started is that the language for this work is different across the country. So in Montana, the term is personalized and proficiency-based learning. However, you might hear our district leaders use different terms like personalized competency-based learning or personalized learning, learner-centered practices. So know that we're in the same space when we're talking about those different terms. Also, as our panelists are talking today, if you have any questions for them, go ahead and throw those in the chat, and then we'll address those either as we go or leave some space at the end. Hopefully you have some time to address some of your questions that are coming up. All right, with that, let me introduce our panelist. So from Kings Local District in Ohio, we have Matt Freeman. Matt is the Director of Teaching and Learning for Kings District. And Kings is located north of Cincinnati in the southwest part of Ohio. And then York School District 1 in South Carolina. They are on the northern edge of South Carolina, which is hard for my brain to say, North South Carolina. I had to think about that one for a minute. And we have Alyssa and Becky here with us today. April wasn't able to join, but Alyssa and Becky are going to help us understand their journey thus far in their district. And so with that, I think what I'm going to do is start with, we have a couple questions. And our first question, I've asked our panelists to talk about what was your jumping off point for personalized competency-based learning and some of your initial moves as a district. And so I was wondering if Matt would get us started around that and give us any context around your district if that makes sense as well, Matt.
Sure. Thanks, Abby. Good morning, everyone. Happy to be here today. As Abby had shared, Kings Local School District is located in Southwest Ohio. We are a northern suburb of the city of Cincinnati. We have about 5,000 students, and kind of our jumping off point for engaging in personalized learning was really, we started with the Portrait of a Graduate, which we call our Power Five. So we had engaged a group of stakeholders to help us really think about what the future of education needs to look like, what those skills need to be with students. And so we developed kind of our version of a Portrait of a Graduate. And once we had those skills in hand, then we had to ask ourselves how we are going to work in our classrooms to develop those skills in our students. And so we landed on personalized learning and had an opportunity to engage with KnowledgeWorks and some folks from the state of Ohio to participate in training. So we have 7 schools, actually, including our preschool. And so all of our schools, except our preschool, actually participated in some training. Groups of teachers who had high interest and learning about personalized learning and what it can do for their classrooms, And so we engaged in that. It was a year of great training, I would say, experience, conversation, a lot of trial and error. But it was really a wonderful, I think, opportunity for us. We kind of simultaneously worked at the district level and thinking about what are some barriers that might exist within our systems that need to support our classrooms and our teachers as they're kind of diving into this work. And so we, again, kind of turned to KnowledgeWorks and some tools provided through their organization, the navigation tool in particular. And we kind of worked to land on what we need to improve. And that just really, with that teacher training that we were doing, kind of started a flywheel of interest and other professional learning that we've started to scale.
Awesome, Matt. Will you talk about the book studies that you've done too, especially at the district level? I think you were talking about that.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So not all of our building administrators, everyone was involved at some level, but not every building administrator was leading a team. So I thought it was important that we kind of come together and build some common understanding around what personalized learning can look like. So we kind of reached out to some folks who made some book study suggestions. And so we landed on this one. It's one of our resources, I think, on the slide, but it's Tapping the Power of Personalized Learning by James Rickaball. And so all of our administrators and our instructional coaches, we engaged in a book study this year and have had some great conversation. Some of our administrators have said like it's the best kind of instructional conversation they've had in a long time. This book is I think, good at setting the stage at an early stage of what things can look like. There are some models in here that I think kind of develop what classrooms can be. And so that's been really powerful. And then we had kind of a grassroots effort at our high school, a group of teachers come to their administrator and want to engage in something similar. And they selected a different book. They selected Empower by John Spencer and AJ Giuliani. And so they actually just started on February 27th in the second semester with their book study. So those have been great opportunities for our staff to learn as well.
Thanks, Matt. I like your intention to focus at the systems and the classroom and school level because both are important. And when you're getting started, any way you can create those meaningful conversations so that people can get in a room together and talk about the work. That's where the magic starts to happen. So appreciate your attention
Absolutely.
and bringing that out. All right, York, Alyssa, and Becky. Same question. If you can talk to us about some of your initial moves and how you got started.
Sure. York School District is really outside of Charlotte. If you think about southwest from the Charlotte area, it helps folks kind of put us in place geographically there. But for us, we're also very rural and don't quite have the infrastructure everywhere in our district. We cover a very large landmass of our county with students that have and teachers that have access to internet. So that has always been a challenge for us. Our jumping off point was really around evaluating our Tier 1 instruction. Our state has a South Carolina Profile of the Graduate that also includes Profile of the Graduate competencies. So for us, we wanted to begin to shift our Tier 1 practice, coupled with coming out of COVID. We had the unique opportunity to become one-to-one with devices. And so we use that as an entry point of how to balance online and offline instruction and prepare students for readiness beyond our K through 12 system. So those were some entry points for us. We also were going through state accreditation, which allowed us, and I would suggest this even if you're not going through accreditation, we worked with the Shalecki Center to evaluate our system on 10 system capacities and found that we would like to focus on the areas of innovation and flexibility. That really coupled well with the Profile of the Graduate competencies for us and gave an edge to beginning the work in our schools. We have 10 schools or programs. So from that, we created a strategic change agenda that was 3 goals focused on creating an environment that sets students up for readiness, providing them with flexible and innovative classroom instruction and opportunity, but also building capacity at every level of our organization. And so from that, we made it actionable with our student-centered teaching and learning framework that has 5 domains focused on environment, instructional practices, leveraging tools, collaborative practices, all of those competency-based skills. And we began to use that as a shared language among our district. The intentional part as a system was that we created some structures in place for our instructional team that includes Becky and 4 instructional specialists to arm up our administrators along all throughout our district. So we use that structure to deliver professional development, to model the types of shifts we want to see in the classroom for them to have those learning experiences themselves as adult leaders. And we did that with administrators, our assistant principals, coaches, all of those folks that are in a building that have access to teachers. And then I'm going to swing the ball to Becky, who can talk to you a little bit about what that structure looked like at the student or the teacher level.
So at the teacher level, we rolled this shift out kind of similar to the other school district that just spoke. We started with a book study on blended learning in action by Catlin Tucker, and just tried to find some early adopters in each of the school buildings. We were a new team, many of us new to the district. So this was just a launch for us to get an idea of where the capacity was, where the present levels were, and kind of how we needed to support the individual schools and the leaders within those schools. As Alyssa mentioned, we developed an instructional framework around teaching and learning that really helped us narrow down and make it visible with common language for our entire district. From that, we designed a cohort system called Student-Centered Learning Cohort. We wanted something that was kind of timeless and landed on that title. So we're on our 4th cohort that'll be finishing up in April. We find that the cohort works best for us because we have certain trainings that come about that are mandatory from the state. So like right now, our elementaries are having to go through some reading training. So those schools can't handle another professional development on top of all that right now, but we want to keep the ball rolling throughout our district. So the cohort system allows teacher to opt in when the time is right for them and they can handle new learning. So we take about 12 teachers from our elementary schools total and 12 teachers from our secondary schools. And they meet 6 times throughout the year for an in-person training. And then we are really firm believers that an in-person training really is not super effective unless you have some coaching behind it. So we require coaching after each in-person session, a one-on-one session so that our team can meet one-on-one with you to determine where you are and kind of where you want to take the new learning throughout your classroom. So they spend the entire year exploring the 5 domains, getting new ideas and strategies that they can apply to their context and implementing that. And then through that, we also have a fellows program. So we want to try to keep people engaged. So if you've gone through the cohort, you can apply to be a fellow where you are committing to continue that coaching, continue that learning. We actually have a fellows slam session this afternoon at 4, where our fellows will all gather on a virtual call, and 5 of them will share a new strategy really quickly with the other team. So it's just another way to build capacity and build community throughout our district and create some teacher leaders through the process so we can sustain the work and spread the work.
Mm-hmm.
That
So
was really quick and a lot of information.
Yeah,
Hopefully I condensed it down.
Our scale and spread is very intentional. So while Becky and her team works directly with teachers coaching, Becky also lives in the world of myself and April, who couldn't be here, who coaches our principals and our leaders to help sustain the work throughout their building.
Thank you, York. I'm hearing some trends already between the 2 districts. I'm hearing an effort toward common language, what is the language around this work? And that can come through book studies or frameworks or making meaning together, capitalizing on the early adopters and that coalition of the willing, those who want to opt in to start the work. And then also learning cohorts, I'm hearing. How do we have cohorts of people who can get together and talk about the practices? And then how do we support them through those cohorts and that learning? So, all right, question 2. And I'll put this in chat. I should have done that for the first one, but we'll check and adjust for our second one. How might you approach the shift from teacher-centered to learner-centered? And what mindsets or beliefs do you need to have? What are you finding to be true in your practice as a district leader around this? And maybe we'll start with York 1 this time, if that's okay. We'll head to you next, Matt.
So similar to what I mentioned around our cohort system, is really how we've kind of shifted that from being teacher-centered to learner-centered. We also try to find ways to like market that shift. We have a digital magazine that our district team creates quarterly that will have pieces of that. We also try to make sure that we are including the language in our leadership communication that we do each Friday. We have a Friday file that goes out from our superintendent. So any way we can keep the language going, I think that has really helped us throughout our school district.
And as leaders, we talk a lot about creating an environment in their buildings that is safe for these teachers to take risk and to be open. So just like you want teachers to create a safe environment for their students, we want to broaden that scope to our building leaders so that they create that safe environment in their building for teachers to take that risk. And learning and growing together. So, we want them to have a mindset and belief that this is the right thing for students, for them to be ready for a new age when they leave us, when they graduate, where they need these competency-based skills. And so how do we continue to develop and design learning experiences that allow students to practice those skills and to be able to demonstrate and showcase their skill set when they leave us, when they graduate? So getting everyone very comfortable throughout your district, throughout your building, that we're all learning, growing together. It's a new way for us to deliver professional development to adult learners, with the hope that they will then inspire and model this for teachers to have a new way to deliver instruction to their students. Very open mindset.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah. I mean, I would echo, I think, what Becky and Alyssa just said. I think the importance of having a culture in your district that's going to support the risk that teachers feel like they're taking, and depending on kind of which area you're kind of diving into, as a teacher, I think there's this tendency to want to maintain control. And when you are kind of starting this process, it is not necessarily the teacher that's controlling all of the learning. We're building student agency for them to kind of dive into working on skills and content that match their interest. And so I think highlighting teachers who are willing to take that risk has been something that's been successful for us. We also developed cohorts. We've had 2 cohorts. We had an initial training, and then this year we started cohort 2, another group of teachers that are going through some learning together. And we are highlighting those teachers. So when we have professional development opportunities, we've invited those teachers to share, not that they are an expert, but to share what they've done with students in class. Because oftentimes we hear from our teachers that they want to see what it looks like. They want to see kind of what the instructional shift looks like in class. So if their neighbor's doing it or their teacher bestie's doing it, then that gives them a little bit of comfort and a little bit of encouragement, I think, to kind of step out to work on these skills as well. So definitely having a culture of risk-taking and knowing that it's not necessarily a linear journey, that you're going to improve as you go and as you try things. And if you make mistakes, it's okay. You know, everyone's resilient. You can always come back and kind of correct those and learn from that moving forward.
Yeah, thanks to both of you for that response. I think thinking about the modeling of agency and as leaders, what does that mean for us? What does it mean when we don't have all the answers too? Because this is new for us as leaders, and really reflecting on that and practicing. What do I do when I don't know the answer as a leader? What do I do when we need to figure this out together? And I am not the one that is chosen to make the next step. It is us doing this together and figuring it out together. So, Matt, you had shared a quote on your door. Can you tell
I
them
did.
about that?
I did. So this is, I'm a big podcaster of all kinds of different topics. And so I was listening to a podcast, and it kind of inspired me to select a word of the year. And that word was move. I told Abby about it. I don't know if anybody can identify, but you know, I can be a perfectionist to some degree, and I can also kind of get planning paralysis. So I think about things so much because in my goal to be perfect, um, that it keeps me from taking action. And so that word move that I heard in this podcast and, you know, just kind of inspired me as a reminder. And I have it placed in my door. So when I go in and out of my office, I remember the importance to try, to keep moving forward, to learn from mistakes, and to engage in new learning as often as possible to kind of keep this going. So.
Thanks, Matt. I'm seeing Alyssa and Becky nod their heads too. So it must be resonating with them as well.
It's in the teaching and learning space. You know, we have that in common.
I know.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Alyssa,
need
did you
that
want to add?
podcast.
Say that again.
Yeah.
I'm gonna need that podcast.
It takes a network, right? We have to learn together. All right, third question, then we'll have a few minutes for Q&A after this. So Matt, if you're okay, we'll start with you, but biggest aha in personalized learning or best personalized learning advice? Whichever direction you want to take that.
Kind of related to what I just shared. You know, if you are looking to get into personalized learning, then just begin. There are so many resources out there that are available to you. Gather together the people, whether you know you're starting with district leaders or building principals, you know, teachers. Just gather those folks together and start learning together. I think if you learn together with the goal of providing the best instructional experiences that you can to your students, that's going to give them a competitive edge as they're moving out past high school into whatever it is that they want to do. Then all of the thought and work is worth it to kind of see where students can take it. So I would just say just start. Don't get stuck in the planning.
Thanks, Matt. Alyssa and Becky.
You want me to go first, Alyssa? So my big thing that has always resonated with me since embarking on student-centered learning practices and that I share at most professional learnings is I just charge everyone to think big, start small, but we have to scale fast. We can't wait as adults to get comfortable. Our children can't wait on that. And it's not hard to sell that. With AI, technology advances, the world that we're preparing students for is vastly changing. So I try to that really is what stuck with me. It lights a fire under me and makes me, I think, probably really push my team and those around me that we just can't wait to get comfortable. So what's the one thing that you're going to try for the next 30 days? And then what's the next thing we're going to try the next 30 days until we can continue to build our capacity to do what's best for kids.
I knew she was going to say that. That's why I was letting her go first. So I didn't say it because that has also resonated with me. I think my big takeaway is getting really comfortable being uncomfortable. And sometimes as leaders in a district or even in a building, it's okay that everyone is moving at a different pace with this work. It is our role to look for entry points, and everyone's entry point looks different. Every building, if you're a district leader in your district, may start at a different point and have a different entry. So it's our job to kind of nurture that entry point and help it to grow and scale to the level of work that we would like to see, and helping your leaders get okay with that. When you have multiple elementary principals, they're not all going to do this work the same, nor should they. And they need to be okay with that when we preach consistency so often in our field. So yeah, that's probably my biggest piece of advice.
Seeing Matt not as well, so I'm seeing some.
I was also, I share one more thing. I was thinking
please.
as they were talking, something that I remember very early on, teachers really having great conversation about. And it was them asking themselves this question as they were planning and thinking about their lessons. What am I doing now that I can have my students do instead? Releasing kind of that power, so to speak, and of the learning, and kind of looking to build that agency with the learners. So that was really powerful. And I think, honestly, an easy thing to think about as you're beginning the process. What can my students do now that I typically do when I'm doing a lesson? So
I would agree with you, Matt. Just like we used to think, Becky used to charge me with, does that really need to be like a meeting in an email, or can you do a flip video to send that out to model a strategy and not, change the time and the pace and the place? So I would agree.
yeah.
Great place to start. What can you release?
I think that is a beautiful last word for end our panel on. I don't see any questions in chat yet. Feel free to add them, or if anyone wants to come off mute and ask a question, I'm going to pause for a moment and allow that space. All right. I'm still watching chat, so feel free to pop things in. But while we're ending together, I did ask both Becky and Alyssa and then Matt, what were their favorite resources when they've been beginning this work and in the first few years of the work. And so I am going to put links to these in chat as well. On the left, Matt talked about empower and tapping the power of personalized learning. And then Matt, you want to say something about the groups at work one?
Oh yeah, Groups That Work. I love that book because it is chock full of different protocols that you can use to engage in any kind of professional development that you're doing. It's organized really well. So if you're looking, how to build good discussion, for example, or to build consensus around something, there are just lots of protocols that are provided in that book to kind of help you. So I use it all the time. It's a great thing that we could use as district leaders to model with our administrative teams or groups of teachers we meet with. And then teachers can also borrow them and use in their classroom instruction. So it's been a great resource. Really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Matt. And Becky and Alyssa, anything to add about your resources? I put them in chat just now too.
So the PD book, The 7 Habits That Transform Professional Development, is actually the book that we are doing as a district level team, just around the adult learner, and trying to understand that a little bit better. We get kind of frustrated as a team when people don't read their email, or we have said things for like the gazillionth time. So this kind of helps us really understand the adult learner. Personalized SC is a state resource that we have. And then Grading for Equity is another text that we've used in the past, just around, once you start shifting some of your instructional practices, grading kind of ends up being part of that. So being more equitable with your grading practices, that book kind of really has been beneficial to Alyssa and I in our work.
Thanks, Becky. All right, so we are going to close out. We do have the third webinar coming up in a 3-part series that is next Tuesday at the same time. It's scaling and sustaining personalized and proficiency-based learning. And we will have a panel again from leaders who have been on this journey for a while, and they'll share about kind of their journey thus far and how they think about sustaining the work, which you heard snippets today from our leaders today, but we'll go more into that next week. So I'd like to thank Matt, Becky, and Alyssa for joining us today. And thanks to our audience for coming to hear from our leaders. Crystal, anything else?
No, looking forward to you joining us next week. Same day, same time. So thank you for our panelists, and Abby, thank you for hosting and facilitating this learning opportunity together.
Thanks, Crystal. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you.